All right, assuming we have done things correctly, I think we are now live. I want to say good morning to everybody. This is NOMBERG Law Live. It's Bernard Nomberg. I got my buddy up in Missouri, Tyson Mutrux, on the other side. How you doing, bud?
Hey, good man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope you're having a good day, a good week, and I appreciate you giving me a few minutes today.
Of course. I always love chatting with you. I learned that you did not create the fake Twitter account, which bums me out a little bit. Now I've got to figure out who did it.
I'm sorry.
But that's I thought for sure it was you, but now I'm excited. I'm excited
Well,
to do this. This is fun.
we can either talk about that for the next 25 minutes. We can talk about some good stuff. Guys, as we do every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, I have got Nomberg Law Live. I'm going to try to bring to you each week different folks talking about different topics and subjects that are part of their world. And this is no different. And my buddy Tyson, who is one half of the dynamic duo of the Maximum Lawyers, have got some time for me today, and I really appreciate that. And Tyson's a good buddy, and we've known each other a couple of years, and had the pleasure of going to their conference up in St. Louis the last couple of years, and it's always such a great experience, and hanging out with awesome attorneys and experts from around the country. But Tyson, before we jump into some of our topics today, for those few people who may not know you, share a little bit about yourself, your practice, and your family.
Sure. If people see me typing, it's because I'm trying to share the video to my page. But I run a personal injury law firm in the state of Missouri. I've got two offices, one in St. Louis, Missouri, one in Columbia, Missouri. I've got an amazing wife. I've got three awesome little children, ages 8, 4, and 3. I've got a pretty awesome podcast with a lot of great people that contribute like you. We've got a really awesome conference, and so Maximum Lawyer that's the name of the podcast, is sort of spread into all these other great relationships and these great other things that we're doing with Max Law Media, where we record videos for lawyers. We got the Maximum Lawyer podcast. We've got Maximum Lawyer Guild, which is sort of a mini mastermind kind of a group, and so there's a lot of things going on, but that's me. That's how. I don't think that we are one thing. I think a lot of people, they're a doctor, lawyer, and they think that that's them, and that's not really me. I think we're more than just that.
Well, I know you're also a very busy dude, as you and your buddy Jim Hacking, our buddy. Y'all really do provide a great service for, I don't know how many lawyers are now in the group. I'm on the page and I'm looking. It looks like it's almost 1,400. Holy smokes. I think when I joined it, it probably was around 250. And so that was a year and a half ago or whenever it was.
Wow, it's grown a lot since the first conference. After the first conference, it grew a lot.
It really, really has. And I want to say good morning to our buddy Mitch Jackson out in Southern California. Mitch, thank you for joining us for a couple of minutes. And he's chimed in, as he does sometimes if he's not running on the beach or having his morning coffee. But guys, there's so many different topics that Tyson and I could talk about today. But what I want to talk about is really two things. And the first subject is going to be Tyson runs a very busy but successful law practice. And how does he keep his practice copacetic? How does he keep those people doing what they're doing and happy and have a great work environment and culture? And it's so vitally important, regardless if it's in a law office, law practice, or it could be anything. It could be a dentist office. It could be an engineering firm. It doesn't matter what type of business it is. Your corporate culture and the happiness and satisfaction of your employees and the people who make it run are so vitally important. And Tyson, I want to hit on that for a few minutes. I want you to share some of your philosophies and how you guys handle those things.
Sure. I think that there is this interesting balance you have to strike between being rigid and being too flexible. And that's something I've learned over time. I used to think that and there are some people that you and I both know, and they're more on the rigid side where this is what we do, this is exactly how we do it, and there's no exceptions to that. And then there's the people that, you figure it out kind of a thing. I'm somewhere in the middle of that. I think we have everything documented and all the processes documented. And I think that's really important. But the way I sort of look at it is we've got a basic structure on how to do things, but you figure it out because you can't create, you can't create a process that covers every single thing. You just can't. And so you've got to give employees permission to figure it out. Because if you don't, if you are too rigid, the problem is they're coming to you because a situation will come up every single day that doesn't fit your set criteria. And they say, well, it says to do this here, here, and here, but this isn't covered. How do you do it? And they're going to be coming to you all the time. So you have to give them that permission, that authority to go out and do things and figure it out. And so I've learned over time to do that, to be more flexible. But before I can be that way, you have to have some sort of set protocols, and you really do. I think that's key. And so that's how we do it. We've got our set protocols, we've got our systems in place, but then for everything else, I give them the authority to figure it out. They don't get in trouble if they screw up. I screw up, you screw up, everybody screws up. So it makes no sense for me to yell at them if they screw something up. I think it's important to give your employees permission to screw up so they can experiment and make things better. I think that's really, really crucial. And it's funny. So I've got a different mindset, I think, than a lot of lawyers. Some managers, if you think about just managers in general, not just lawyers, they do have that more structured approach. And I asked everyone yesterday, I said, what do you like about working here? And it's the things that they're talking about is communication. We all communicate really, really well. We do weekly trainings. We care about improving their lives. And so a lot of it has to do with communication. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we've given them a lot of that permission to do their own thing and make things work. And but also we use a lot of virtual assistants. A lot of them were comparing us to other companies they worked for and other firms. And the problem that they had before was they had no structure, so they didn't know what to do. So they would just be sitting around doing nothing. And so that's where that structure does come into place. You've got to have a structure and then also give them that flexibility on the back end.
No, those all sound good things. And before I want to welcome our buddy from Cleveland area, Will Eady, has dropped in for a minute. Good morning, Will. Hope you're doing well, bud. If you guys ever need somebody to deal with nursing homes or assisted living places, Will is your man. Tyson, one of the things that we have learned over the years is, and very similar to what you're telling us, is give the people in the office the expectations, the guidelines, but also the authority or the ability to do their work and to make mistakes, because you don't want them coming to you every 2 or 3 minutes. We both are somewhat of a product of John Fisher's systems book. We've all heard him speak several times and know how awesome his books are. And I bet you've got one within hand. And there's so many awesome ideas in there from that book. And do you have his newest one as well? I was just getting ready to say, very good, that if you don't have systems in place that provide for those guidelines for people in your office, they're just out there floating, and they have no guidelines. They have they don't know what they're doing, and your business is not going to do well. It's going to suffer. And just knowing what I know about you and how organized you are, I bet that in turn, what you've put in place helps to breed a great corporate culture for your people.
And that's what we try. And some people are probably thinking like, okay, well, what the hell do they use to organize everything? Because I think I think it's important to let people know those kinds of things. Like, what tools can they use? And so, do you mind if I talk about some of those things that we use? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, what we currently use, we use something called Tetra. And Tetra is what some people call a wiki. All right. So all it is a database to put all your information. Okay. So don't get confused by the term wiki. It's just a place to put your documentation, all your processes and procedures. All of our sample forms go into there. Before that, though, you don't have to spend money on products. You really don't. You can use, my very first thing that I used was a Microsoft Word document, and you control, find, replace is what we did. And if we wanted to fill in forms or we put all our procedures in there, that moved into a Google Doc. After that, we went to Microsoft OneNote. And then after that, we went to Tetra. So you can use any of those things. Some of those you already have, and so you don't have to spend any money on. But I think that that's important. You've got to put it somewhere. And when you think about these procedures that you're going to draft and put together, you can copy some from the internet. That's not what I did, but you can start there. I wouldn't do that. I think you're going to come up with a list of things that you don't quite agree with. Just start with one page at a time. That's how you should just start. One thing on one page at a time. It's going to build over time. If you think about the biggest companies in the world, they didn't start with some gigantic policies and procedures, and you don't want a big gigantic policies and procedures, but you need to start one thing at a time. So if you're continually doing one thing over and over and over again, you need to create a procedure for it. So as you grow with your company, your firm, others will know what you're doing, and you can use those as trainings later on down the road. And whenever possible, I highly recommend recording things. So something like Tetra, you can use YouTube too. So you can record your screen on how to do whatever. Let's say you're creating widgets, and you can create on the screen, okay, here's how we do our widgets, and you just upload it to YouTube, and don't make sure it's a private channel or a private video, and you can use that as training. It's these little free, simple tools you can use that will save you hours upon hours of time down the road. I don't know if I answered your question, but I wanted to talk about those tools, so maybe I did, maybe I didn't.
You absolutely did. In fact, those are two of the principles that we use. We've made videos for our staff. We have it in a private area of YouTube. So new people or people who haven't been cross-trained in other aspects of our office, they learn that way. But the other thing is we make sure the systems that we have in place that everybody becomes very, very good and very, very competent about how those systems work. And you're right, you can buy the fanciest internal systems that you want, or you can be as simple as you want, and I think we're more on the simple side of things. But if you're not proficient and not learned, and your staff hasn't learned how it works, doesn't matter what you've spent, you're going nowhere. Tyson, I want to shift gears just a little bit about how your firm, how the members of your firm, attorneys or staff, how they deal with the public when it comes to promoting your office, promoting what your message is from your law firm. And how does that, along those lines, you've obviously created a culture in your office that they're proud of, or they wouldn't be promoting you outside of the office. So talk about that for just a minute.
It's nothing that we make mandatory. I think it's just whenever you treat your employees right and you pay them right, I think that they will feel that the desire to, I guess, go out and share information about your firm, about your company. Because I know we're not just speaking just to lawyers, but we're talking to non-lawyers as well. So I used to have this mindset a long time ago. You pay the bottom dollar to get employees, and you kind of get as good of a deal as possible. And it doesn't work as well when you pay as when you pay your employees really well, and you give them benefits, health insurance, vacation, all that kind of stuff. And so I shifted my mindset a few years ago, and it's benefited me really well. And then they will then go out and advocate for you. Another tip, though, that you can do, though, is get them talking to clients about you, though, and prospective clients. So when they're calling your office, it's not just going out on social media and sharing your social media posts and engaging. That is a component. Again, we don't require that. They just do it. They get involved. And we did something. It wasn't our idea. We got the idea from Jay Ruane. We shared, it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, it was #Get Personal Week or something like that. And we shared personal information about a couple of the employees, and it was good. I mean, like you share information about them, but when they're talking to clients, if you're doing a really good job and doing a good job for your clients, they're going to say that to your other clients. Tyson's really good. He's tried X number of jury trials. He gets really great results for clients. They'll start repeating that to your clients, and that helps a lot. Don't underestimate the value of that. Whenever they're talking to your clients and prospective clients and bragging about you, that's going to say a lot about you, and it's going to increase your conversion rate quite a bit.
It's a very organic attempt, is what it sounds like, and I think that's the best way. Guys, if you're just joining us, I've got Tyson Mutrux from Missouri talking today. We're talking about corporate culture. we're now going to shift a little bit because his better half has joined us on watching. Amy, good morning. Hope you're doing well. I think
Yeah, I just smiled because she just sent me a text, so
she's making sure you're at work, bud.
that's right, exactly right.
But what I want to talk about for a minute now, Tyson, is that work-life balance for somebody as busy as you are, running a firm. You and Amy have three little guys at home. It's very busy. When do you get your downtime? How do you make that balance? How do you still have a life outside of work? How do you make all of this work? Because it can be incredibly stressful at times.
Yeah, and since Amy's listening, I've got to tell the truth and be honest about it. It has a lot to do with her, I think. She keeps everything organized outside of work. She does a really good job of that. I rely heavily on that. And you asked me before the show about birthday parties, and I said, I don't do any of that. I don't do, it's because she does all that stuff. So she keeps it organized. We've got a pretty strict rule now. I used to work really long hours, a lot more than I used. I work a lot less than I used to. The firm has benefited a lot more since I've worked less because it's for a variety of reasons. I'm happier because I'm not at work and miserable because I'm just there all the time. But we have a pretty strict rule. I get off at 5 o'clock, sometimes 5:05, 5:15. Depends, but it's a pretty strict. Leave at 5 and then come home for dinner and have dinner with the family. I think that's really important. I understand not everybody can do that, but I think it's really, really important. I try not to work a whole lot at night. I do sometimes. Like last night, she was making dinner when I came home, and I was doing a little bit of work at the island, but I don't do that every night, and I don't do a whole lot of work on the weekends. There are times now there is exceptions to that if I've got jury trials or some motion that's due, or if I got to get a lawsuit filed. She gives me that breathing room to do things like that. But I think setting aside that time, like those boundaries, specifically the dinner boundary is a big boundary, where I'm home for dinner every night, and we have our own little family discussion at dinner. That's important. And then we also do something date night. We started that, I'd say, 2.5 years ago, and I think that's been, I think, amazing for our marriage. I think it's been amazing just for our kids too, because we're not, I think it's easy for you to get caught up in just everything being about the kids, which is, I think that's important, right? But you also have to make that time for our marriage, and so every Thursday night, and if something comes up, we will shift it. But I think we've maybe missed one, maybe two. I think we made it up though. I think we've missed one date night in the last 2.5 years. And so every Thursday, sometimes Wednesday, sometimes Friday, but Thursday's our date night, and so we do that. And I think that's on my calendar. And so I think putting those on your calendar is pretty significant, and it helps quite a bit.
Well, what it sounds like is you're working smarter, more efficient, your systems are in place, and you figured it out. And you're right, you can't replace that time period of being with the kids and with Amy, whatever it is you may be doing. But I applaud your efforts, and I hope that you're able to continue doing that, because the kids, they're only going to get busier. They're only going to be more involved. But it does sound like you've found a very healthy work-life balance, and I know that's so very difficult for any busy professional who has a family. And before you know it, they'll be in college and then out of college. And now I don't have television, cable, or internet at home for a reason. That's my break of when I get home. I'm breaking from what I'm doing at work. But it doesn't, everybody has their own. You just got to figure out your own system. And if you see the hashtag that Amy just put up, I think you'll get a chuckle out of it.
What is it? I can't read it. What is it?
It's hashtag stop the bullshit.
That's right. Exactly right. Stop the bullshit.
Well, now that she's brought it up and that we brought it up, I want you to kind of expand just for a minute about what that means, because it was part of your powerful talk at Max Law Con 19 back in June. You had, maybe 150 lawyers and others in the room, and it was mesmerizing. And I want you to kind of share a few minutes about that, Tyson, because it was very powerful.
So I think the gist of it is this. We're all very talented people, right? But we create all these excuses for ourselves as to why we can or can't do something. and you have to understand that you are an important person. You are a talented person. And you have to stop the bullshit, get over all these excuses, and get out there and do the things that you know you can do. In a nutshell, that's what it is. Now, I said I'll just do STB from now on. I use that phrase, I don't know, probably 30 times. I think I dropped an F-bomb, but I needed to get people's attention, right?
Yeah.
Because you get into this lull where you go through the motions, and you're stuck in this rut. And then you just start making all these excuses because Jim Hacking and I, he's my co-host on Maximum Lawyer, we get all these people talking to us on a regular basis about all these great ideas, and then they don't implement them because they've got a billion excuses. And it's all they are bullshit. They're bullshit excuses is all they really are. And so you've got to stop. You got to quit and accept the fact that you're talented. I mean, if people are listening to this, probably because they care about learning, they want to learn, and so they need to stop it and just start moving forward and implement the things and set aside the time to do them. I mean, like the biggest part of it is just restructuring your day to set aside that time to do those things and just start doing them. You have no excuses, just start doing them. So that's the gist of what I talked about. That's a 25-minute presentation condensed down into a few minutes.
Well, it's for those of us who were there and had the pleasure and honor of listening and interacting with you during that. It was very powerful, and it stuck with me quite a bit. And it really is that actions speak louder than words. And until you have flipped the script in your mind, so to speak, or you're actually going to do those things, you can talk all you want, but unless you implement it, it's meaningless. Guys, I'm talking with Attorney Tyson Mutrux. Our buddy Chris Nicholson from Colorado has just joined in. Good morning, Chris. Hope you're doing well, bud. And thanks for joining us. But we're talking about corporate culture. We're talking about life-work balance. We're talking about a bunch of different things that really are so vitally important, regardless of what your profession is. If you work in an office environment of any sort, a clinic, a practice, whatever it may be, all of these things are easily transferable to whatever your practice can be. And I appreciate you, Tyson, spending some time so far with us. And we're getting close, but I do not want to get away from getting finished with our conversation without us talking about Maximum Lawyers. I really do, because it's meant so much to me over the last couple of years. I've made friendships from all over the country and outside of our country. I've gotten the last 2 years each June in St. Louis. You and your buddy Jimmy Hacking, if you guys listen to their podcast, which you really should, that's one of his taglines. What's
up, Jimmy?
What's up, Jimmy? But you guys have created such a giving environment, such an exchange, that I suspect that when you started this, you probably didn't expect that within 3 years you'd have almost 1,400 lawyers from around the country and many other countries all sharing in such a positive way in a profession that is so territorial, that can be so cutthroat. But if you spend 10 minutes going through the Facebook page, spend 5 minutes listening to their weekly podcast, spend any time at the annual seminar, you'll get it. You'll understand why it's so incredibly important. It's so incredibly popular. And I want to applaud you and Jim for the environment that you guys have created. And with all of that, I want you to kind of share what is Maximum Lawyer and the 2020 conference. Let's talk about that as well.
What is Maximum Lawyer? I don't remember who put it. I can't remember exactly how they put it. I think it may have been Terry Fields, but Maximum Lawyer has turned into something so much more than a podcast. It began as me and Jimmy on a microphone just talking about the things we had been talking about for years. And Jim Hacking was an adjunct professor of mine at St. Louis University. We ended up staying in touch. I wouldn't say we got out of touch, but we hadn't talked in a couple months, and then we ran into each other at a Culver's, and we started chatting again, and then we just said, we started chatting some more, and we was like, okay, let's do a podcast. So it started with us, just two guys on a mic, talking about business stuff, and then next thing you know, we added a Facebook group, and as a little quick side note, the this is sort of a good example of how to start a business in a way, because it's incremental. It's not everything at one time. You add on piece by piece by piece. So we added the Facebook group, and really what this is, Maximum Lawyer is no longer two guys and a microphone. It's a lot of lawyers that are all contributing and crowdsourcing this, right? It's now a crowdsourced podcast where we have great guests like you that come on and they tell and they share some tips and they share their story. And the Facebook group is the same thing, just elevated to another level. It's incredible the amount of information, your biggest secrets, your biggest tip, people share on the Facebook group on here's how I make money. Like, here's how I do it in my territory. And they have no fear about, someone else stealing the idea and then, ruining their business. It doesn't work that way. It's that abundance mindset where everyone can do well and we can all do well together. And so the Facebook group took off. After that, said, hey, let's meet up with some people. In 2018, we had a conference. We had about 70, 75 people at that conference. We had it at St. Louis University School of Law. It was like in a classroom. Pretty good attendance for our first conference. We didn't know what the heck we were doing at all, but it turned out well because we had some really great presenters.
Make it till you make it.
Yeah, that's right. We had some very understanding listeners and people that attended the conference, and so that went really, really well. After that, the Facebook group really took off, and then we had our second conference. We doubled our attendance. We had at least 150. The staff there were like, yeah, you'll have more people than that, because we were counting and we sort of lost count. So I'd say the official count, we'll say, was 150. Probably had about 165 that showed up, which is, I didn't realize that it was going to be that great, that incredible, that many people would show up. And then the Facebook group took off even more after that. But since then, we've expanded. We've added what's called Max Law Media. And so for people that know of CRISP video, CRISP, it's sort of like that. We shoot videos for lawyers and tell their story. And Kent Richardson was a key part of the podcast, who helped take it off, help it take off. Kent Richardson's been an integral a part of that, and he takes care of shooting the videos for people, so he does a really good job. So
he's the true MVP.
He really is. We're just a couple guys and a mic. He's everything else. But he's done an amazing job. And so when you say, like, what's Maximum Lawyer, it's all these things now that just started two guys on a microphone talking about their stories.
Well, two things I wanted to share about that. When you go into the Facebook group, if you're a member and you've got an issue that's troubling you and you want to get some ideas, I promise you that within 2 or 3 hours, you might have 50 comments that are so vitally important. I mean, people just giving their time. And it could be things that they've dealt with many, many times. It's new to you. You got an issue. You just throw it out there. The other thing I was going to say is at the conference, the quality of the speakers and the people they're from all over the country. John Fisher, unbelievably powerful. Mitch with his awesome information. Lawman out of Miami, Umansky. I mean, I could go on and on and on. These are the top of the game. And you guys put together such a great environment of learning that it's unbelievable the amount of stuff you take away from each of those conferences. But even better than that for me are the friendships, the absolute friendships. And I'm headed out to Southern California in October, and 4 or 5 of the Max Law and Legal Minds, Mitch's group members, I'm hoping to meet up just to say hey, to have a meal with them, or just to hang out for a little bit. For no other reason, they're now my friends. But that's kind of the environment that you guys have created, and I applaud y'all's efforts. But the next conference, 2020, is also going to be in St. Louis.
You got it. It's our kind of our home base.
June 11 and 12, if I'm correct.
You got it.
We're going to put a link in here to in the comments sections on not only how to get to the Maximum Lawyers Facebook page, but also links for folks. I don't know how live it is yet for signups and things, but whatever y'all done, Tyson, I want to make that available to people when it's ready. Lost you. Lost your volume. Can you
There we
hear
go.
me?
Yep,
Okay, now
gotcha.
you're good. Now you're good.
The keyboard wasn't working. All right, so yeah, the link is live. I'll put a link in the comments so you can grab it if you need it. And yeah, it's live. We already went through the really early bird through the Facebook group, and so we sold more tickets in the first 2 days for that than we did of all the first year. So it's
Awesome.
quite incredible. So yeah, we're well on our way. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It always is. You talk about the speakers. The speakers are amazing. It really is incredible. The people are willing to come out and just share like the really really great business secrets. And it's not even some that's just sharing their story that are really powerful stories. And so it's a really just great environment for people.
The last thing I'll say about that, and we're almost finished with our discussion today. Every single person who spoke at the conference, it doesn't matter what their area of the law may be, and they may not even be lawyers. They just may be specialists in other things that may apply to law firms or lawyers or the law. Every one of them, you can take a nugget, a tidbit, something, and apply it not only to your practice, but maybe even to your personal life. Not to get too deep into this, but Jim shared very personal story about himself. Most of the people in that room had no idea, but he's commented after the fact, maybe on y'all's podcast, or I've heard him talk about it a couple of times, how many people then came to him to share their stories. And what an unbelievable environment. So I applaud you guys once again. So thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Well, buddy, I could talk for hours, but I know we both have a lot of other stuff to do, and Amy needs you to stay on the right track for your whatever's going on for the rest of the day. So I thank you for your time today, Tyson. It really means a lot to me.
Thanks, Bernard. Thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed your last episode, by the way, with the referee. I can't remember his name, but it was really just cool. It was a cool episode. So
Yeah,
keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that, bud. Guys, this will conclude us for today for NOMBERG Law Live every Tuesday. Try to come to you at 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, and we hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you another time. Be well.
Bye, everybody.